latest intervention in social protection, and I think the organizers assembled a number of very interesting stories. Each of the person has been given a generous 5 minutes. It's an elevator pitch. However, as we are not allocating Q&A, so we are going to try a new system, time management system. At 5 minutes, I will give a very soft, gentle gong. Then you know that your 5 minutes are up, and then it's your courtesy to decide if you have take 1 or 2 minutes extra. But please, at 7 minutes, we have to complete, because otherwise we go very much over time today. There is one more session after. But I'm not the one guiding you through the session. I have very competent help. And so we have a moderator for the session. She's a program manager of migration, forced displacement and resilience at the European Union delegation to Pakistan. She's really an expert in international cooperation and management, including 15 years with delegations of the European Union in South Asia and the Middle East. She has been living in Islamabad, I think, since 2021, so she's no newcomer to Pakistan. So please welcome Miriam El Harouchi.
Thank you. Thank you. Good afternoon and salam alaikum. So I realize that this is not the easiest time slot. It's the second day and it's the afternoon, so we'll try to make this session as short and sweet as possible. So also we leave enough time for our colleagues coming in for the second session. As just mentioned, this is a slightly different format than what we have been doing so far. So there's no framing presentation as such, and there will also be no guiding questions. So this is not a discussion, but it's actually more of an opportunity to share with you the latest innovations in the design and the delivery of social protection programs at global level. And the objective for us is to try to stir new impulses for policymakers, but also practitioners that are here with us in the room. So we have a great lineup of guest speakers today to share with you their experiences. But before I introduce them to you, I will just take 1 minute, I'll try to be as brief as possible, to frame the scope of their respective intervention. So for this, I just wanted to stress again that the point was raised at different occasions, yesterday and today, that in order to effectively fulfill its function and to create the conditions for long-term poverty reduction, but also inclusive socio-economic development, social protection cannot, and actually should not, be looked at from the narrow prism of cash assistance only, which is actually also putting a heavy burden on the Treasury. So instead, an effective social protection policy framework, and I don't need to tell you this because you are the specialist, so an effective social protection policy framework should create the conditions for livelihood security, but also empowerment throughout the life cycle. And to achieve this, I think it's a great time to start to widen the discussions that have been taking place on social protection to see how we can now integrate preventive and promotive measures into the work that we are all doing. So this consists, for example, in developing social insurance programs that are supported by decent job opportunities, promoting financial inclusion, investing in social infrastructures, and enhancing the quality and access to services. So here we're talking about education, health, nutrition, but there are also essential services that we have to consider. So it's basically about connecting the dots for what we call a multiplier effect on human capital development and economic growth. So today's speakers will be in a better position to present to you their experiences, but also to put what I just said into context and to showcase this time with very concrete examples what we could be doing differently, but also what we could be doing better and also possibly faster and cheaper to move this cursor in the discussion. So today the focus of the presentation will be mostly on financial inclusion. We'll also include their hybrid schemes and nutrition, but we'll also be looking at the critical role that social protection plays to ensure that the ongoing green and digital transitions that are happening globally, but that are at the heart of the EU agenda, are just and that they can fully harness the human capital needed. So I know that time is of the essence, so let me introduce you to our speakers. Maybe I'll do it one by one. I had initially planned to present everyone, but so I would like to invite Frank Schneider to the podium here to do the first presentation. So Frank is a senior policy advisor at GIZ. He's a public financial management specialist with a focus on social protection and development finance. And Frank has worked with the German Federal Ministry of Finance and GIZ Indonesia on social protection reforms. So Frank, if you want to come to the stage, I hope your presentation will show on the screen.
Yeah, thank you so much for the very nice intro.
Sure.
I indeed hope the presentation is there. I only have 2 short slides. Good afternoon. We met yesterday already. And I would like to talk about digital financial literacy. So if you have my slides, that would be perfect. Here we are. Yeah, that is basically the introduction, one of the 2 slides. And in very simple terms, we don't have that much time. Pakistan, I've been here for a year, and from the analysis, from the assessments we've done, we understand that Pakistan is not the easiest place for women's financial inclusion, to put it in very broad terms. So we know from a database, Global Findex database, just to give you a couple of numbers, that in 2021, only 13% of women did have a bank account, whereas 28% of men did have a bank account. And only 3% of women held a mobile account, whereas 14% of women of men did have one of these accounts. So you could say, basically, I think it's fair to say that money is mostly in the hands of men in Pakistan. And what we observe is that in a number of cases, in most of the cases, women do face multidimensional exclusion. So this lack of access to finances, of financial decision making, goes along with a lack of inclusion for education, employment, and other dimensions of well-being, of prosperity. So that is quite a key issue, and it relates obviously a lot to the discussions we've had over the past 2 days. And just a couple of more numbers around this. We've been asking ourselves, why is that? Why is this lack of financial literacy? And in our understanding, it's on the demand side, speaking economically, on the demand side. So there's a widespread lack of financial literacy. We've done a very thorough baseline I want to underline. We've asked 5,200 beneficiaries of BISP as the sample size. And we understand, therefore, that 92% of those respondents don't have a bank account. I'm talking about BIS beneficiaries. They find bank accounts to be a very difficult matter to handle. 50% have no access to phones. 67% cannot read and write. And the majority of them saves, if possible at all, maximum 1,000 rupees per month. So that is just, the framework, that is the people we're talking about, right, when we are designing interventions. And now, second slide, please. So what I believe is indeed innovative. Innovative, why? It hasn't happened before. It happens now. We've done it. It has been created. It has been innovated. We've done, together with BIS, obviously, under the ownership of BISP, a very thorough financial literacy training for now 250,000 BISP recipients. We've done that by the end of 2024. We trained this number all across Pakistan under the ownership of BISP. We had more than 800 trainers sort of capacitated, traveling all across the country to make those trainings happen. And it was a bit of an integrated approach, so we tried to link financial literacy with aspects of savings, borrowing, transactions, together with other relevant issues we believe are very much of a concern for those people we're talking about. So aspects of climate change, of good parenting. We've done this together with UNICEF. So therefore very much an integrated approach all across Pakistan. We want to replicate it. We want to go forward. I know that Pakistan, Karandas, will also work on this subject. So this is very much an integrated approach, and I'm very happy I can say that we've, together with BISP, innovated this approach. It might sound simple, but against these difficulties you're facing at the outset, it's quite of an achievement, and we believe it's really a good step towards integration and empowerment, to put it in that way. So therefore, what we want to do in 25 is we want to replicate it. We want to do more of those trainings. We calculate that in 5 years, one could train up to 5 million BISP beneficiaries, women. With this approach, we want to have this as a more steady approach with BISP. We want to link the accounts with actual accounts. We know that the World Bank is running the hybrid savings schemes, so there's a lot of work going now into the question of how to not only train women, but also have continuity in the question of opening accounts, making sure that women really are empowered to run those accounts and are sort of the decision makers of their public finances. So this is, straight to the point, our innovation I wanted to share with you. Get back to me for additional questions, and yeah, happy to hand over now to the next speaker.
This one on.
Oh, yeah, just use it.
Thank you very much, Frank, for highlighting how important it is to make social protection and financial inclusion gender responsive. So now I would like to invite Mr. Taimur Ali, the Chief Digital Officer of Karandaz, I hope I pronounced it right, to share his perspective on financial inclusion and economic empowerment. Mr. Taimur Ali, sorry, I'm just looking at my notes, is the Digital Chief Officer at Karandaz, as I just mentioned. He's specializing in financial inclusion and economic empowerment. He has over 16 years of experience in digital transformation and financial services, and has led major projects in both the public and private sectors. He's an expert in fintech acceleration and digital payments, and played a key role in developing new business models and authored Pakistan's first concept paper on open banking. Taimur is known for driving innovation and leading high-performing teams to deliver large-scale digital initiatives. So we're very much looking forward to hearing from you on your insight and perspectives.
So thank you very much for passing me over the stage here now, and Assalamu alaikum and good evening, everybody. In fact, good afternoon, almost evening here. So I think it's very important to understand the digitization and payments part of social protection. One of the way we can introduce transparency, efficiency, and low cost in the value chain of social protection is through digitization and payments. So rather than making a Karandaz pitch, I think what's important for all of it is to understand the evident use of digitization and payments in the social protection value chain. I think that is where I'll make my argument with you in the next 4 or 5 minutes. So when we talk about digitization, I think it's very important to understand that access channels, financial literacy, like you mentioned, literacy to use those channels, and of course, literacy to operate your financial accounts is of significant importance when it comes to the most vulnerable of the population. For Karandaz's theory of change, we distribute the pyramid in 3: top tier, mid tier, and lower tier. Mid tier is economically active, but maybe financially unserved or underserved. For the bottom of the pyramid, I think commercial sector or the current market system is not operational, is not viable to convert them to financially included population. This is the role of government social protection schemes to serve this population, and there comes the effect of digitization and digital payments, which, I'll wait for a couple of seconds and then I'll kick off here. So, which means that for the bottom of the pyramid population, it is an absolute opportunity that we convert them on digital accounts, of course with the financial literacy and all these elements in play, and help them graduate from their poverty through financial services. How do we do that? I don't have to click it right now. I'll do it in a moment. So the idea here is that you give them access to financial products. What are financial products? Savings, insurance, credit, payments, so they can be part of the formal financial services. They can be part of the current market system, which can then start serving them with the financial needs. And that is when they are able to transact, get out of the poverty by using digital financial services of the existing ecosystem, existing market system. So very quickly, our theory of change is that we take them out of the vulnerability by digitizing their payments, by giving them instrument to use financial services products, and over the period of time, they graduate by using, through financial literacy and using products, financial products that can graduate them out of the poverty, whether that be asset-based investment, whether that be credit-based facilities, or whether that be micro savings or micro insurance. This demands a whole course of journey for the beneficiary to take them along and graduate them out of the poverty, but the starting point is digitization and access to financial services. So as to read this slide from your right side to the left side of the theory of change, the end goal is to graduate them out of the poverty by providing them ubiquitous access to financial services, which means all digital channels, distribution channels, conducive to these populations should be available for them to use, then build low-cost products to serve them as a product outcome where they are able to use services that are designed for their needs. They might not need an insurance that I needed. They might not need the savings product that I need. So they have to be built for their own market system. And then, of course, the building blocks for which we operate is to work with government, digitize their departments, very eagerly to digitize and integrate government programs under the digital payments infrastructure. This is a term that we've been hearing in Pakistan. This is about creating our own digital stack, connecting different government institutes so that the end beneficiary, the public, is going to access services digitally more conveniently and with the low cost. And lastly, we also work with, in fact, we work a lot with private sector for their catalyzation and experimentation through our grant funding and investment funding. The numbers on the right-hand side have already been told by Frank, so I'll skip that and I'll move to the next slide. So this is how we want to work with social protection program in Pakistan. The way to read is to go from bottom to top. We want, in fact, the theory of change says that the government departments should work on their infrastructure in their digital facilities, resources, so that they have the bare minimum available in order to provide things digitally to their consumers. One step up, they should be able to establish internal controls, structures, in order to manage that digital financial or digital infrastructure within the organization. As a result, what we see is that social protection programs getting digital, adaptive is the word I've been hearing, and when I think about it, the digital is the instrument where we transform our programs from simple to adaptive, putting flexibility to design. And then, of course, ultimately the goal is to create one national database of social protection beneficiaries on which slicing and dicing by different departments can be done in order to design products and services which are conducive to their own subsidy outcomes. And that common database is something that should be exposed, be available for the digital payment or the digital infrastructure of the company, so of the country, which means that multiple facilitation programs can be run leveraging this unique database of the beneficiaries in a country. Very quickly, I'm glad that I have not run over my 5 minutes yet. I've already? Sorry for not ringing that. Okay, so I'll take 2 more minutes. I think I've already alluded to the points that the national digital infrastructure under the Digital Nation Pakistan program is the way forward, and this particular common database of the beneficiary is going to really enable the digital infrastructure to create access channels, products and services to be able to provide to these beneficiaries at the lowest cost. One thing I really want to kind of re-emphasize here is the components of the digital infrastructure of the country and what we already have in Pakistan, which can be leveraged by different organizations sitting here. So digital identity, digital payment, digital locker are the 3 main components of a digital infrastructures of a country. Digital locker is where, as a beneficiary, as a normal consumer, I am able to store my credentials. Whether that be my identity, whether that be my documents from my university, I should be able to, as a consumer, as a national, be able to store it in a central database. Payments is interoperable, should be interoperable, low cost, so that a beneficiary, no matter where the account is, should be able to receive the fund in that account at zero value. RAST as an infrastructure has already enabled that in Pakistan as the instant payment system of Pakistan. It's deployed at the State Bank of Pakistan. It's the government facility. All government social protection scheme at a zero cost can access this payments channel so that the payments can be transferred in the accounts of the beneficiaries. And of course, last but not the least, the identity of the person has to be digital so that I can access and they can access me digitally, eliminating human intervention, bringing in the element of transparency so that this national digital stack is able to capitalize efficiencies into the system, which can eventually bring this population out of the poverty or graduate them out of the poverty. So this is the larger picture I've presented. One component is already available in shape of RAST. One component is already almost available in shape of digital identity with NADRA. I think we are just there to, kind of make that one singular national database of beneficiaries, which can then be used by all the departments to digitally disperse funds, reduce the cost of reconciliation, and reduce the cost of disbursement for the beneficiaries. Of course, bring convenience in their lives by giving them the autonomy or ubiquitousness to achieve or receive their funds as they like them to be. With that, I'll close my presentation here, and I'm happy to take the questions in that session. Thank you very much for listening to me.
Thank you, Taimur, for your insights. And indeed, 5 minutes, I think, are not enough to discuss this subject. So I invite everyone to reach to Taimur to continue the discussion over coffee or later on. I would like now to turn online. Our next 3 participants actually are going to be online. I didn't have a chance to mention this to you. So I don't know if we can have Alba with us.
Yes, I am here. Do you hear me well?
So while she appears online, let me just, and I hope she hears us, introduce you to my colleague, Alba Riobo-Suto, who's a policy officer working on social inclusion, protection, health and demography at the Director General for International Partnership, INPA, at the European Commission. So she is in Brussels and she will be joining us online very soon. Here she is. Hi, Alba.
Hello, do you hear me well?
Yes, we can hear you. Excellent.
Okay, thank you very much.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So
please,
Alba
please.
will be presenting to us the global gateways and social protection and how we integrate those two concepts. Alba is an experienced international professional in development cooperation. She specializes in economic and social rights with the focus on labor. She has a very extensive CV, but I'll stop here to give you the floor to explain to us what Global Gateways is, how this connects to social protection, and hopefully answer a lot of questions that people may have on that subject. Over to you.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much for the organizers for inviting us. I'm sorry that I cannot be there, but actually I was, remember that 10 years ago, I was in Pakistan for a project on labor rights at the time on the textile sector that the delegation was implementing, and also very happy to see our colleagues in the delegation, even online. So I will be briefer, and I will be maybe more macro on what is the latest reflection within INPA, so within the International Partnerships Department of the European Commission, on how to strengthen the social protection angle within our current strategy. I will first start with the first slide, just to recall a little bit what has been our long-standing approach in support of social protection since 2012, so a little bit more than a decade, as my colleague was actually advancing already. So we have tried to move progressively beyond fragmented social protection schemes to comprehensive social protection systems, and this is is reinforcing nationally owned systems with sustainable financing, relying more and more on progressive taxation through DRM and PFM rather than on donor funding. We have also focused very much on moving beyond poverty-targeted schemes and gradually support universal access. This is in line, as you know well, with the right-based approach and with the SDG framework. And whenever this is not possible immediately, we are also piloting more and more categorical approaches. And the third one is that we have gradually escalated from cash transfers to support systems, integrated social protection systems, more and more integrating also the contributory pillar, which is also very much linked to our own internal European history. So next slide. We are now in a new phase, I would say. Since 2 years, we are conceptualizing what is a new framework for the role of social protection within the new external action strategy for the EU, which is called, as you have heard, I suppose, a lot these days, the Global Gateway, which is basically the external investment strategy that focuses actually on leveraging mainly infrastructure investment in 5 areas, which is digital, climate change, transport, health, and education and research. So we have had to be original and innovative in the way that we see social protection within this framework, and we have conceptualized. I will now speak about the rationale, the why, and then in the next slide on the how we are doing it. On the why we think that social protection has a strong role to play within this, let's say, just transitions debate, because we think that social protection transfers and schemes provide income security, and that allows for continuing investing for households on human development, on education, on health, on nutrition, so that the future workforce that is needed for the transition has sufficient human capital. Then the second is this income support of social protection can free financial capacity for entrepreneurship, and so for investing in ventures in the new digital and green sectors, but also to incentivize green investments within existing enterprises. And also, social protection can serve as a buffer for climate change negative effects. You've been discussing a lot shock responsive and adaptive social protection and DRR. This is exactly what it's about, but also to accompany investments to ensure that they can realize their full socioeconomic potential. The second strand for which social protection can play a role is that social protection can ensure the quality of jobs, because it's part of the decent work agenda, and this is on the labor demand for the new jobs created. More and more we are conducting employment impact assessments for these investments that we are promoting, looking at direct and indirect effects, not only on the quantity of jobs, but on the quality of jobs, and then on the labor supply, so to accompany social protection with active labor market policies and also skills development. And the third strand, that is a strand actually that has been used a lot in the European Union and is at the core of what we've been doing since the 70s, is the one that conceives social protection to mitigate the potential negative effects of the transitions for job losers in contracting sectors, but also how transitions can affect negatively livelihoods of individuals and communities. And this is, for instance, what has been done a lot within the EU through the European Social Fund and other structural funds. So we have a lot to build on our own experience. Next slide. So the next is on the how. We are mainstream social protection in this investment strategy. We see it as a twofold. On the one side, promoting high social impact investments, so investments in social areas, on social services, but on the other, also mainstreaming social protection in global gateway investments in other sectors. This is whenever there's a program on infrastructure, a program on green transition, to have additional social protection components or actions that can actually accompany, on the one side, the transitions to ensure that they are just. So this is rather thinking at the structural transformation that the transitions entail, or more narrowly to the specific investments. So whenever we invest on infrastructure, we are increasingly conducting social impact assessments, and social protection is a key tool that can address some of the negative effects and maximize some of the positive effects of the investments on societies, on individuals. There is also the last point, which is that the Global Gateway also comes with new tools, especially with innovative financing mechanisms that can be also I would say reflected or assessed on the relevance for social investment, and this is, for instance, on social bonds that we could reflect upon, or of public-private partnerships. I think that many of us as development partners are currently thinking about this same line, so I think that is a good opportunity for discussing with other development partners, and we are also having this internal debate with our other Team Europe members, with EU member states. The last slide, it's only a specific example of how we could do that. This is a project that we are implementing second phase in Lao PDR, which is actually a project to strengthen social protection and labor rights in specific value chains, agricultural and forestry, in coffee, tea, and forestry sectors. Is a 3.5 million euros project implemented by the ILO, and this is a little bit the framework. This is a Team Europe initiative, so with EU member states, to increase the quality of trade, investment, and connectivity in agriculture and forestry, and it has 5 components on agricultural value chains, private sector development, connectivity to markets, and the last segment on decent work and social protection through this project that looks on the one side to reinforce institutionally for promoting labor and social protection compliance at the district level, and on the other side working also with workers and informal sectorial associations, small farmers, for promoting their organization and empowering them to promote and protect their rights and claim them. So this is it on my side.
Thanks.
Over to you. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Alba, and thanks for stressing why social protection is important in the work that we do at the European Union, both from the social assistance but also from the social insurance side, but also wider than that, and for seeing also and explaining to us how we can strategically continue to work on social protection within the Global Gateway strategy. I will now turn on to Ms. Zaina Sifri, if she could come online. So Zaina is the Senior Program Officer at the Gates Foundation, and she's working on the Sopran project. We're just waiting for her to appear.
Good afternoon, everybody. Can you hear me?
In the meantime?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you, and we're about to see you. Perfect. Here you go. You're on screen. So hi, Zaina. And
thank you so much.
So I'll just introduce you briefly. So Zaina is a public health nutritionist with over 20 years of experience in development. She joined the Belinda and Melinda Gates Foundation in June 2020, and her focus area are maternal, infant, and young child nutrition. So she manages a portfolio that includes country scale up to multiple micronutrient supplements, as well as leveraging social sector platforms for improved nutrition. I'll pass on the floor to you, Zaina, to introduce your perspective working on nutrition and social protection. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Assalamu alaikum. It's a pleasure to be with you, even if it's just virtual today. Thank you for having me. So I will do a quick presentation that's going to take us more deep into one specific project. If you can go to the next slide. Today, I have the pleasure of talking to you about the Social Protection Program for Adolescent Nutrition. In the context of Pakistan, the Gates Foundation has been working very closely with the Benazir Income Support Program for years now. And we know that GIZ is also one of the key partners to the Benazir Income Support Program. So a few years back, we started discussing this with the GIZ and BISIP And then we realized that there's a lot of areas where we can be partnering together, the three of us. And then we looked at what are the programs that we have been supporting and where the greatest need is. There's a lot of work that's being done with women, with mothers who are pregnant, with lactating women, with children under 2. And then we found one area where we thought there's a great potential. It has not been tapped in yet. And there's an opportunity to contribute to the human capital development of Pakistan. And so we looked at adolescent girls, trying to see how we can ensure their good health and nutrition before they get into marriage, if they choose to have children, etc. And so this project, if you look at the bottom of the screen, comes in partnership across all these great organizations that are working together across the 3 sectors that you see within these bubbles, looking at social protection, looking at nutrition, and looking at adolescent girls. One key component that brings them all together is actually education, where we're looking at girls who are going to school, but not only going to school, they're part of the Talimi Wazaif program, which is the conditional cash transfer program that provides a stipend for children to remain in education, and therefore helps women who are from a lower socioeconomic system to be able to keep their children in school, especially these young girls. So we looked at one of the key nutrition and health issues in Pakistan, which is anemia. A lot of these young girls are anemic. When they get married, they get pregnant, they become anemic women who then have dire consequences for themselves and for their children. So the purpose was to facilitate access to nutrition supplements and fortified foods for these young girls. We wanted also to empower them, not only to exercise better nutrition for themselves, but also advocate for better nutrition within their communities. And really what we wanted to make sure is that the girls, their parents, the school teachers have a good knowledge of what it is to have good nutrition in order for you to have a good education and a good future. And so looking at this project, it is being implemented in 7 districts across all of the provinces, and includes over 8,000 schools in Pakistan. The girls who come to school and are part of the Talimi Wazaif program have a special activity that are specific for them, but all the girls that are in these schools are receiving weekly iron folic acid supplements. This is a WHO recommendation that is meant to prevent anemia. It's not a treatment, but it makes sure that girls are not anemic, which improves their health, it improves their cognitive knowledge, and it improves their future. And the other aspect that we've worked on is looking at how teachers can be educators of nutrition for children. So if you look on the right side of the screen, we have what the targets are for this project, looking at doing trainings for teachers to ensure that they have the right knowledge of nutrition, looking at adolescent girls receiving the supplements, etc. Another aspect that was key for us was having girls become agents of change, empowering them so that when they go back to their communities, they can also be equipped with the right knowledge and with the right approaches to talk to their community, talk to other girls in their communities who aren't necessarily in schools. Make sure that their parents are aware of the Talimi Wazaif program, which encourages then the girls to attend school through the stipend program. But not only that, we also wanted to include an additional component that would work with the community around the schools, and that was looking at the provision of fortified wheat flour through the chakki mills. And so, as you're aware, the chakki mills are where most women in the communities or people in the communities are going to take their own wheat or the wheat that they've purchased to get it milled. And this is work that we've been doing across different partners in Pakistan, working with the local chakki owners to make sure that they have the ability to fortify the atta flour that is going to be brought by the different community members. So in this instance, we worked with them to make sure that they are producing fortified atta flour that can be given then to the girls who are members of the Talimi Wazaif program. And so this was a key aspect to encourage even the families to have a better nutrition. I will stop here just in the interest of time, and thank you for having me today.
Thanks a lot, Zaina, and thanks to you too for highlighting how an integrated approach is highly critical in addressing nutritional outcomes and how social protection only is not the solution, but there needs to be other interventions around that to make sure that this objective is achieved. So I understand you have another engagement, so thank you very much again for joining us online, and we hope to meet again, hopefully, at another occasion in Pakistan or elsewhere. So now we'll turn again online to Ms. Melvis Guven. Hello, Melvis, how are you? Good to see you again at the more appropriate time.
Hello.
Today, I hope for you. So we had the opportunity to introduce Melvis yesterday, but just to recall that she is the lead economist and global lead for social protection delivery systems at the World Bank Social Protection and Jobs Global Practice. Melis is particularly known for her innovative work on extending social protection to the informal sector. Oh, she disappeared from our screens, but I think she will pop up again very soon. And Melvis is also known for developing digital tools like Core MIS, and she also co-led the World Bank Social Protection Strategy that was launched in 2022. So over to you, Melis, and I understand that the focus of your presentation is going to be around hybrid schemes, so looking forward to hearing more about this.
Thank you so much. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Please go ahead.
Okay, perfect. I cannot see the presentation. I'm not sure if it's put up already.
Is it? Not yet. Oh, it is.
Okay. All right. Perfect. So let me just get started. So yesterday we discussed the critical need to address the coverage gap in adaptive social protection, if you may recall. And building on that conversation today, I will focus on an innovative intervention for extending coverage to the informal sector. Next slide, please. So to quickly set the context, just to ask why informal sector, and why is social protection for the informal sector so important? Because the informal sector is large. Globally, 2 billion workers are in the informal economy, and in Pakistan, informal employment accounts for around 82% of total employment, which makes it the primary income source for the population. And the informal economy faces many challenges, including low human capital, limited productivity, poor access to services, financial inclusion. Also, they have irregular and low earnings, and they are more susceptible and vulnerable to shocks. Next slide, please. But despite these vulnerabilities, informal workers are often excluded from social protection. And COVID-19 also exposed this gap. As you may recall, scaling up coverage for the informal sector proved to be extremely challenging for many countries during the pandemic. And informal workers are typically excluded from safety nets due to having some form of income. Meanwhile, contributor programs like pensions and social insurance cover only the formal economy, which is small in many low and middle income countries. And these schemes are not suitable for the informal sector because they have irregular earnings and they do not have formal employment contracts. As a result, no suitable social protection instruments exist for the informal economy currently. This is why we refer to this group as the missed middle, because they are literally missed from social protection system. Next slide, please. So when designing social protection interventions for the informal sector, it's essential to consider their unique challenges and tailor programs to meet their specific characteristics and needs. As outlined in this slide, I'm not going to get into the details of it in the interest of time, but as was highlighted earlier, they have irregular earnings and low human capital, low financial inclusion, so on and so forth. Next slide, please. So, as discussed also yesterday in the ASP framing session, innovative interventions are needed to reach the informal sector to close the coverage gap, which is, as we discussed, is crucial for adaptive social protection. So in that sense, voluntary savings schemes, in particular, offer potential for coverage and resilience of the informal sector workers. Next slide, please. So to address similar challenges related to informality in Pakistan, BISP launched the Hybrid Social Protection Scheme. This scheme is also a key component of the World Bank's Social Protection Project in Pakistan, CRISP project. And this is the case as we believe it's the right moment for BISP to consider the next generation of social protection programs moving beyond cash transfers. And building on the National Socioeconomic Registry, the hybrid scheme aims to strengthen the resilience of households so that they themselves can cope with shocks, particularly for those in the informal sector, so that also the burden, the fiscal burden on the government can be reduced somewhat eventually. As they improve resilience and have savings to cope with shocks. Next slide, please. So, what are the key aspects of the hybrid scheme? BISP's hybrid social protection scheme aims to promote a savings culture, enhance financial inclusion, and build resilience among the participants. And by blending non-contributory social assistance with contributory social insurance, hence the term hybrid, the scheme targets BISP beneficiaries, but also non-beneficiaries that are in the informal sector, but many of them are already in the NSCR. There is an ongoing pilot currently in 15 districts across Pakistan, and the pilot aims to enroll 150,000 subscribers. Participants of the scheme are asked to deposit a monthly on a monthly basis, 500 or 1,000 rupees, and this is matched by 40% by the BISP on a quarterly basis by matching grants. And this is really an incentive to promote savings and instill that savings culture. And the scheme leverages both the National Socioeconomic Registry and financial sector infrastructure to amplify its reach and impact. So along with this innovative scheme, it's also this integration, which is innovative in itself, and it's critical in my view to integrate the social protection digital infrastructure with the financial sector infrastructure. And the picture here is from our visit last week to a BISP office, which was kindly organized by BISP, and we spoke to hybrid scheme beneficiaries. And these two women are currently the beneficiaries. And it was really inspiring to see their interest and enthusiasm for the scheme. And I just wanted to also also mention here that we found that in our observations, the financial literacy training has also been very helpful for these women, and some of them have already been trained. So it really nicely complements the hybrid scheme. So I want to also thank GIZ and BISP for also making the financial literacy training part of this scheme as well. So to conclude, I believe this initiative complements cash transfers effectively, and based on the lessons learned from the pilot, scaling it up nationally would be a logical next step to improve the resilience of the large informal sector in the country to cope with shocks and eventually to contribute to adaptive social protection in Pakistan. Thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Melis. And I, for one, am a strong believer that hybrid schemes such as this are very important policy tools or programs, if you'd like to call them this way, to start the discussion on how to move from cash assistance to more social insurance type of mechanisms, and also start to build stronger trust in the systems, because this is also an aspect that we see when we talk about social insurance. So thanks for joining us for this session. And again, 5 minutes is not enough to discuss such an important subject, but I invite participants to link to Melis, and hopefully we get to see you in Pakistan and continue this discussion, and hope to see also the results of this program as it continues. I think in the interest of time, it is now 5:02. So we've reached our objective on time. There's no Q&A, but as I was saying, if you're interested in any of the topics that were discussed or any of the innovative practices, we invite you to reach out to the speakers. And with this, I will just conclude this session and pass on the floor to my colleague for the next one. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much to all the speakers and Miriam. So you notice that we have a small marathon in presentations. They are supposed to be very short, very visual, very much to the point, more inspiring. We know that some of you have questions. Please try to connect to the speakers if you have very specific ones.